begins with the charming Lin Chuang meeting her husband's mistress Yang Yi in a restaurant. To understand how this happened and why they met, you have to go back to months, where Lin Chuang was a happy wife and carefree housewife. She seemed to have a perfect life with a posh mansion, a cute daughter named Chao, and a millionaire husband named Wyman, the head of a large technology company. Unfortunately, nothing in life is perfect, and this case is no exception. The beautiful married life begins to crumble when the girl finds among her clothes an exclusive earring belonging to the secretary and mistress of her husband. Digging on the internet, Lin Chuang finds a picture of a girl with a beautiful manicure holding these earrings in her hands. Going to her husband's office, Lin Chuang carefully observed the manicures of all the women working in the company, but found no matches. As Yang Yi left work early with a little investigation, the girl learns that her husband has registered a hotel room in her name. The next morning, Lin Chuang goes to yoga class, where she accidentally meets Yang Yi, who has the same manicure as in the photo. Instead of socializing with her husband's mistress, the girl meets her best friend Jiangxi. Having learned about everything, the friend advises her never to divorce her husband, despite the betrayal, because in this case, her ideal and secured life, as well as economic stability, will collapse in an instant. Soon the situation becomes more complicated as Veyman spends all the savings set aside for her daughter's education to buy a villa for her parents, much to Lin Chuang's dismay. Each day gets worse than the previous one, and one night the girl notices that her husband's clothes smell of another woman's perfume, which means that he is still seeing his mistress. Tired of the whole situation, the next morning, Lin Chuang meets Yang Yi and asks her to leave her husband alone. The mistress is adamantly opposed and has no intention of doing so, stating that she and Wyman love each other. A little later, Lin Chuang returns home and receives a package, in which she finds a beautiful and elegant dress for an upcoming party. Upon seeing its size, she realizes that the dress is smaller and is actually not meant for her, but for her husband's mistress. Despite what has happened, Li Zhuang goes to the party in the evening in a beautiful dress and pretends to be the happiest woman in the world. Being surrounded by hard-working and successful people, the girl feels awkward because they do not understand how it was possible to give up everything to become a housewife. She feels guilty about this decision and realizes that she made a mistake, so she goes home early. The next night, Lin Chuang can't sleep well because of her daughter screaming, who has developed a rash all over her body. Seeing this, the girl takes Chao to the hospital as soon as possible and calls her husband to inform him. But he doesn't answer the phone because of his date with his mistress. At dawn, mother and daughter return home without waiting for women to return. When her husband does arrive, Ling Zhuan gives him a scandal for not answering the phone at a time when their daughter needed the help and support of both parents. After the quarrel, the girl sells her engagement ring for $700 and meets a famous woman named CG, who works as a lawyer. Lin Chuang not only asks her for a divorce, but also tells her about the delicate problem that she is unemployed and has no source of income, because of which she may not be eligible for custody of her own daughter. Lin Chuang could use the assets obtained during the marriage, but unfortunately her husband has spent everything, so the girl will not get a penny in case of divorce. As a result, the lawyer advises to wait a little while for the husband to accumulate new assets and find a decent job before filing for divorce. Shortly after all this, the very meeting between Lin Chuang and her husband's mistress took place. During the meeting, the girl asked Yang Yi to help her with her daughter's custody and return some of her assets, after which she would agree to a divorce and leave her husband alone. Yang Yi is not ready to make concessions and is not going to share the rich man's money because she is a beggar and belongs to the lowest stratum of society. Living in a terrible and almost abandoned apartment with her younger brother who constantly plays computer video games. In fact, all her expensive outfits, jewelry and handbags are just cheap knockoffs, so there's no way Yunji would give up everything that Veyman has. Starting the next morning, Lin Chuang tries to find a job, but after a few unsuccessful calls, she falls into depression. Everything changes the moment she spots a man looking for a cab. Lin Chuang offers him her help and, realizing that she is good at it, decides to become a cab driver. In the evening, her husband goes to a business party to get a contract and promises Yang a promotion if she helps him. The girl accepts her boss's offer without hesitation, but the men at the party force her to drink. When Yang drinks too much and becomes helpless, one of the men takes her to his house, but luckily they are spotted by Lin Chuang, who rescues her husband's mistress and brings her to his apartment. The next morning, Yang learns that Wei Mian promoted not her, but a classmate, which makes the girl very angry. She decides to give her lover a scandal about it, but he believes that her colleague is more qualified and deserves it. The businessman promises the girl that he will soon promote her, but Yagi begins to doubt that Wei Mian can be trusted. Meanwhile, Lin Chuang accidentally meets an old friend and college classmate named Hush Wei, who has become a successful businessman, but hides his success from her, and the fact that he has been in love with Lin Chuang since the first day they met. At the same time, Yanji's life becomes increasingly difficult as she rents an apartment but has no money to pay the rent. Soon her lover promotes her and transfers her to another department, which worries the girl even more. A few days later, he agrees to help Lin Chuang in exchange for a 20% commission on the money received. First of all, they need to find evidence that Li Min has been cheating on his wife. To do this, Yeonju suggests that the men go to the museum, where they not only look at paintings, but also kiss passionately. At this point, they are spotted by Ling Xuan, who slaps her husband and his mistress, after which she begins to blackmail Wyman into giving her the money and assets that have become her property as a result of the marriage. From that day on, Wyman begins to ignore the mistress and distances himself from her, ignoring Yankee's calls angry. The girl buys herself a bouquet of flowers, pretending to have many admirers. She hopes that Wyman will believe that someone else is courting her, and it will make him jealous. At the same time, Lin Chuang's father ends up in the hospital with a broken leg. Upon meeting her father, the girl discovers that Gu Xia is taking better care of him than his son-in-law. Seeing this, Yemen gives his wife a scandal and asks her to quit her job as a cab driver to take care of household chores. She tells her parents about it, but they are adamantly against it, thinking it is unfair that she would quit her job and not be able to take care of her daughter alone. Realizing that she has no more time to waste, Lin Chuang decides to find a good job in a prestigious company. Starting the next day, the girl attends several interviews, but the leaders of the technology companies are not sure of her qualifications because Lin Chuang has no experience and has never worked before. A couple days later, the couple goes to a party with their daughter. At one point, the girl begins to itch, which makes Lin Chuang nervous. She becomes even more nervous when she sees Yang appear at the party in a beautiful dress. Despite the rich man's attention to his mistress, he rejects her, and when he returns home, he convinces his wife that he will never betray her again. In an attempt to demonstrate the seriousness of his words, Wyman transfers $500,000 for his daughter's education. The next night, his wife and former lover meet to discuss what happened. Lin Chuang advises the girl to find her own happiness, but Youngie loves her husband and is willing to do anything to be by his side. At the same time, things in women's company begin to go worse, and it affects both the businessman and his comrade. At some point, there was a leak of information which led to a huge financial loss. Knowing that her husband was also leaking information, Lin Chuang asks Yang He to help her find evidence to expose the dirty businessman. On the same day, Lin Chuang receives news that she has been hired as an assistant in a company. She hurries there and learns that it is the work of her old acquaintance. Raymond invites Young Yi to a luxurious restaurant, where he apologizes and promises that he will not betray her again. Unlike his wife, the naive mistress believes his words and deletes all information related to the data leak so that no one will know that it was Raymond's doing. Lin Chuang asks her to come to her senses, but it's useless because Yang Yi is too blinded by love, which leads to another conflict. Yang Yi's blind happiness was short-lived, as a few days later, her lover asks her to make a covert audio recording with his business partner to expose him. Wyman's plan works. but all the co-workers know exactly who set up one of the businessmen. Starting from the next day, the colleagues look askew at Ganji and begin to avoid socializing with her, which hurts the girl badly. Meanwhile, Lin Chuang takes a walk in the park and suddenly notices pink balls and arrows directing her to a certain route. Following the signs, the girl reaches the university, where she meets her husband surrounded by hundreds of balloons. As it turns out, today is decades since their wedding day, and Wyman has not only prepared a celebratory surprise, but also bent the need to present a ring and offer to renew their vows. Yingyi sees pictures of the goings-on online and meets with Lin Chuang to discuss her act. The businessman's wife admits that she agreed to the proposal, but only to keep up the appearance of a relationship. At night, Yonggi receives a gift from her lover and goes on a date with him at a luxurious restaurant. After dinner and a few drinks, the lovers swear their love for each other. But Yonggi begins to realize that Bei Min is just taking advantage of naivety and blind trust. The very next morning, the secretary is finally convinced that the businessman used her. The company discovered that she had deleted some important information. But at the same time, Weyman did nothing to protect the girl. Noticing that her sister has not returned home, Yingyi's brother informs Ling Juan and they set out to find the girl. They soon find her drunk in a bar, dreaming of revenge against the rich man who betrayed her feelings for him. Yonggi is ready not only to help Lin Chuang, but also to do everything to destroy the deceiver, Wei Min, once and for all. A little later, the rich man tells Yogi that he will help her find a new job, but the girl reacts angrily, promising to do everything to make him regret this attitude towards her. The next morning, Yogi appears in the office dressed up and with a smile on her face, which attracts the attention of many colleagues. A little later, Raymond officially fires the assistant, forcing her to pack her bags and leave the office once and for all. Lin Chuang, with her daughter and her husband's parents, are enjoying a vacation together, when suddenly two bandits appear in the house, demanding that Raymond's father pay them his debt. When they arrive, the girl's parents see what is going on and decide to intercede. But Lin Chuang's father suddenly becomes ill and falls to the floor, losing consciousness, after which he is taken to the hospital. That same day, a new employee named Joyce arrives at Women's Company. A beautiful girl who attracts everyone's attention, including the sympathy of her new boss. Soon it turns out that Joyce is not only a strong and demanding girl, but also the daughter of a powerful man. After learning this, Wyman is ready to work with the beauty and help her whenever she needs it. Meanwhile, the relationship between Lin Chuang and Yang Yi is getting better and stronger. Perhaps the girls could be considered good friends, but for now that's not the case. Jia, Yang Yi's younger brother, falls in love with Lin Chuan and decides to impress her. Jia takes a job as a real estate agent and tries to get to know Lin Chuan and her daughter, treating them with care and attention. Accidentally bumping into his former lover, Damon treats her with contempt, which makes the girl very angry. After meeting Lin Chuang, she confesses that she hates her former lover, but is afraid to take revenge on him, believing that it could cause problems for her own reputation. A short while later, Wyman and Gushuya meet to discuss a possible collaboration between their companies. Gushuya invites Yonggi as an experienced professional to the meeting. The former lover seizes the opportunity and brags that he was the one who taught the girl everything he knows himself. Usia remains firm and unyielding, and during the negotiations, he insists that Wyman's company should sort out the contract as soon as possible, otherwise there will be no cooperation. Realizing that he is in a difficult position, Wei Yemen asks Youngie to return to the company and help him solve the problem. A little later, the businessman meets Joyce, who bought him a cake in honor of his birthday. Talking about life and small problems, the beauty begins to feel sympathy for the man, without realizing what kind of person he really is. A few days later, Yonggi informs Lin Chuang that he has a new mistress, who is the beautiful Joyce. The rich man's wife is not surprised by this, and she does not react to the news, realizing that he is just using people, and Joyce is no exception. The girl is the daughter of an influential man, which means that Wyman will use her naivety to promote his own business. That same day, Jia gathers up his courage and confesses his feelings to Lin Chuang. The married girl is much older, so she rejects the guy and offers to be friends. A couple of days later, Lin Chuang shows up at her new place of work and at first feels very scared, but quickly adapts and finds a common language with the team. Soon Lin Chuang and Younggi realize that it is not only their hatred for women that binds them together, but also the real friendship that is developed between them. Time. Younggi supports her friend in her time of need and asks her to continue to get used to working in Hushui's company. One night, the friend and former classmate confesses that it was Lin Chuang who inspired him to try his best to become a better person. She was a brilliant student in college, and he dreamed of being just like Lin Chuang. The next morning, Wyman and Joyce go on a joint business trip where they spend time together. Lin Chuang seizes the opportunity and signs a divorce certificate from her husband. Unfortunately, CG's lawyer informs her that despite her stable job, there is still a high probability that her husband, not she, will get custody of her daughter. Given this fact, Lin Chuang decides to wait a little longer, for the most opportune moment to divorce. Meanwhile, Joyce returns from a business trip and goes to her father's house. Having learned that his daughter is dating Raymond, the man strictly forbids them to see each other as he is married. But Joyce does not obey her father's orders, as she is in love with the businessman. A few days later, an elegant party is held in which Wyman and Joyce appear as a couple. Soon Yogi and Masuya appear party looking like a couple in love, which shocks those around them. What is even more shocking is that Yogi is wearing the same dress as Joyce, which creates tension between the girls. After this, he becomes the central figure of the team, and Wyman tries to show sympathy for her. Again, being more intelligent than before, the girl rejects the man. Meanwhile, Ling Xuan is chatting with his co-worker, who believes that Gushuya is a handsome and intelligent man that all girls dream of. Lin Chuang remembers the beautiful moments associated with him from his university days and realizes that he wasn't like this before. The next morning, Lin Chuang and Younggi hack into Wyman's cell phone, looking for evidence that he has been transferring large sums of money to unknown bank accounts. After checking the documents, the lawyer confirms that Wyman has actually been stealing money related to family assets so that he would not share it with his wife. This is illegal on his part, and Siggy is ready to use this evidence in court. In the evening, Joyce confesses her love to Wyman, but the man rejects her, reminding her that he is married. Taking this to heart, the girl gets drunk and goes to the nearest karaoke bar, where her father finds her, barely holding back tears. Joyce asks her parents to talk to Wyman and convince him to be with her, but they refuse, knowing that this is a bad man and their daughter deserves better. Not agreeing with her parents' opinion, the girl is capricious and leaves the house in tears as she suddenly meets Raymond. Having learned about the situation and hiding Joyce from the rain, the businessman rents a hotel room, but the girl kisses him, as a result of which the lovers spend the night together. After the incident, Joyce continues to pressure her parents, and soon informs Wyman that she has persuaded them to join his company. Younggi and Lin Chuang find out about all this, but are not surprised that a rich and handsome man managed to deceive another naive girl. In the evening, Joyce's mother advises her daughter to stay away from the deceitful Wyman, but the girl is persistent and declares that she is ready to do anything to be near this man. Overhearing the conversation, Wyman declares that he loves Joyce and wants to be with her. But the girl's mother does not intend to continue the conversation. A little later, Joyce asks how soon the man will divorce Lin Chuang, and he promises to do it soon, but at the same time asks to keep their relationship a secret so that no one will interfere with their happiness. A few days later, Damon introduces Joyce to his parents, announcing that he is going to divorce Lin Chuang. Despite the shock, they are supportive of their son, and it seems to play a decisive role. The very next morning, Lin Chuang calls her husband about not being able to pay at the store. He admits that her card was blocked because she had a lot of expenses, and he purposely restricted access to the fund so that she wouldn't be a spender. Despite her husband's behavior, Lin Chuang is overjoyed because she is appointed to head the company's next project. The girl is touched by this trust and thanks Shui for this, but he does not think he has done anything special because he does not doubt her abilities. At night, Lin Shuang learns that her husband has bought a house with the money that belonged to both of them. The next day, the girl goes to a party where she accidentally meets her husband. Upon learning that Joyce accompanies him, the wife decides to hug her husband, causing jealousy in his new mistress. Angry, Joyce leaves, but soon Raymond arrives at her place to reassure the girl and inform her of the surprise. The next morning, the couple goes to a jewelry salon to buy wedding rings. It is here that the father and his mistress are spotted by little Chow, who cries bitterly and falls, resulting in her being hospitalized. Meeting at the hospital, husband and wife quarrel and Vamian finally proposes a divorce. He declares that he will be his daughter's guardian, believing that Ling Xuan cannot be a good mother and should leave them alone. Soon after, he kicks his wife out of the apartment and sells the property. This engages Lin Xuan as she needs to look for a new place to live. She tries to talk to her husband, but he thinks he did the right thing since they are getting divorced and should not live together anymore. Fortunately for Lin Xuan, Ashuya finds a comfortable house for her at a good price, which solves the housing issue. A little later, it becomes known that the company where Jia worked is closing due to fraud. As a result, the guy owes the victims a large sum of money as moral compensation. Being in despair, Yini asks one of her colleagues to lend her some money. Mimbo agrees without hesitation, but later changes his mind as he is poor and does not have that much money. Soon Wyman learns that his ex-wife is the head of Ashui's new company project and decides to meet with him. The ex-husband asks to exclude Lin Shuang from the project, but Ashuya refuses to do so, as he trusts the girl and believes in her strength. The next morning, Lin Shuang discovers that the project has serious flaws that can create many problems for their company. Realizing that she is responsible for this as the project manager, the girl decides to resign. A little later, Ling Xuan learns that her former relatives have taken her daughter out of school without consulting her. In an attempt to find her daughter, Lin Shuang meets with her husband and demands to know where Chow is. The husband refuses to tell the truth, but promises that he will allow them to see each other again if Lin Shuang signs the divorce agreement without receiving a single dollar. After learning all this, Yogi decides to meet with Joyce to warn her about what a horrible person Bai Min really is. She, like Joyce, has been the businessman's mistress for a long time and realizes that he is capable of betrayal and deceit. Despite Young's persuasive speech, Joyce does not believe her and in the evening meets with her father, but he refuses his daughter because of her relationship with Wyman. A little later, the girl meets the businessman and in a quarrel, warns him that he has a month to get a divorce. Otherwise, they will end the relationship and he will start big problems. A couple of days later, Vyman organizes an engagement dinner with Joyce. But they are interrupted by Lin Shuang, who angrily informs everyone present that her husband has kidnapped her daughter and won't let them see each other. Soon everyone finds out about the incident, including the owners of the company where Byman works. The board of directors decides to resort to financial punishment, but Joyce continues to stay close to the man, despite all the problems and quarrel with her parents. Soon, the couple meets with their lawyers to discuss their impending divorce. Lin Shuang wants to see her daughter most of all, but Wyman is only willing to do so on the condition that she gives up all her property. Realizing that she will be a papa, Lin Shuang agrees in order to see Chow, resulting in the couple finally officially divorcing. Soon afterward, Lin Shuang and Yangyi start their own business, bringing in everyone who used to be their co-workers. Joyce feels happy because now Wyman belongs only to her. The girl announces that she is pregnant, but the man shows no emotion as they need to play a wedding full of luxury. He does not have the money for this at the moment, and Veman suggests taking his time, slightly postponing the celebration. The man also has a conflict with his parents as he hasn't paid for the house he promised to give them. A little later, Lin Shuang officially opens a small technology company whose mission is to make women's lives easier. The relationship between Lin Chuang and Gu Shuya continues to improve, and soon they become good friends. One day during an evening walk, the girl realizes that Gu Shuya is not only a wonderful person, but also a man she feels good around. Yang Yi proposes to the man to whip in Chuang, but he refuses, saying that he has no feelings for her, which is a lie. The next morning, Shuya gives Lin Chuang some advice, so that the girl can take the company to the next level. As he continues to spend more and more time with Lin Chuang, the man moves her lunch and helps convince a famous programmer to join the company. A few days later, Wyman goes to the mall with his daughter. During the walk, Xiao unexpectedly informs her father that Lin Chuang and Yang Yi are best friends. Thanks to this, the businessman realizes that all his problems were planned by the girls, who decided to take revenge on him. Meanwhile, Lin Chuang meets Joyce and Raymond's new fiancée. Tries to insult his ex-wife, but then Chuang politely thanks her for helping her get rid of her ex-husband and advises her to be more careful with him, because this man is not trustworthy. Soon after, Raymond and Joyce prepare for a grand wedding. The girls' parents ignore the event and do not answer their daughter's phone calls. At some point, Joyce decides to give up on the wedding, but it is too late as the group's parents arrived in celebration. Her parents also arrived to watch the wedding from the sidelines. Party seems perfect, but at some point, everything starts to fall apart. Joyce's parents promise to ruin her husband, and Wayman tries to hurt their daughter. Hearing this, at the same time, the swamp feels depressed about the business, because she didn't think being a boss was such a difficult and stressful job, unable to withstand the on. In an attempt to support Lin Chuang, he decides to invest in her company to improve the girl's financial situation. Soon, Wyman's parents decide to move into their son's house, causing him to scandalize Joyce, who locks herself in the shower in protest. This causes a lot of problems within the house, so Wyman promises his parents to find a new home. Lin Jung tries to find investors, but no one is interested in her company, which frustrates the girl. A couple of days later, she learns that a company has appeared that is willing to invest in her and cooperate. Lin Chuang is very excited and happy that her efforts and dedication have finally borne fruit. At night, Kashuya decides to confess his love to the girl, but their conversation is interrupted by a phone call. The next day, he again tries to tell about his feelings and prepares a small birthday cake, but Gu Suya lacks courage, so he is angry with himself. In the evening, Joyce overhears her husband's conversation and realizes that he is leaking important information to other companies, which can benefit him. The girl is worried because he might be in trouble with the law, but Damon doesn't want to listen to her moralizing. The next morning, Lin Chong meets a university professor who invited her to a conference. It turns out that Gu Shuya is there giving a lecture, and at one point, he is asked about his personal life. The man confesses that he has been in love with a girl for 15 years, and Lin Chuang is shocked because she realizes that it is about her. After the conference, having gathered courage, Lin Chuang confesses his love to the girl, but they are afraid to start a new relationship after a difficult divorce with her ex-husband. Asking the man to wait a while to let her think about it, Lin Chuang tells her new friend everything. Yang Yi urges her to listen to her heart, so that she doesn't regret the decision in the future. Meanwhile, Wei Min gets drunk during the party, ignoring Joyce's calls, and does not return home until near morning. After waiting for her husband, Joyce shows care and attention even though she is angry with him. A drunken Wyman talks through his sleep about how Ling Chuan was a wonderful wife, which annoys Joyce, who pours a glass of water on his face and leaves for her parents' house. A few days later, a technical review meeting is held to test the performance of the inventions and their ability to win in the marketplace. During the test, Lin Chuang's company wins, but soon finds itself in last place, which upsets the girl and rubs Wyman's ego. Lin Chuang's team does not intend to give up and decides to work harder to reach the top. At the same time, Joyce's parents force Wyman to sign a prenuptial agreement, in which he agrees that all his assets belong to his wife, and in case of divorce she will take most of his money and property. Meanwhile, Lin Shuang's company continues to grow and find new sponsors. The relationship between Lin Shuang and Kashuya is also improving, and it seems that they could be a good couple, but the girl is not ready for that yet. Soon Raymond is in trouble, because the police have started investigating the fraud case he has been committing all these years. He asks Joyce's father for help, but the old man refuses his son-in-law because he does not want to go to jail with him. A little later, Raymond asks the pregnant Joyce to talk to her father. But she sees the true face of her husband and also refuses to help him. Angry Raymond declares that he regrets marrying the girl. Leaving the house in tears, a pregnant Joyce leaves as she suddenly goes into labor. Lin Shuang and Youngie happen to be nearby and help the girl get to the hospital where her son is born. After learning about Wyman's dirty dealings, Youngie records his conversation with another businessman on his cell phone. Noticing this, he pursues the girl and demands that she delete the video, or else she will also end up in jail. Youngie gives Wyman a decent rebuff and he just leaves. But his problems do not end there. Joyce has decided to get a divorce and won't let her husband see their son. Wyman tries to object, but Joyce's influential parents won't let him put pressure on her. In desperation, the man goes to the park, where he remembers happy moments with his first wife and Chow. The next morning, Lin Shuang finally says the cherished yes to Hushui, after which he and baby Chow become a happy family. Watching them from the sidelines, Wayman is angry and realizes that he has lost everything he had. Disappointed with himself, Wayman turns himself into the police to go to jail and be held accountable for his crimes. Soon after then, Shuang and Ushuya become not only a couple but also merge businesses, creating a prestigious technology company. During one of the exhibitions, Ushuya arranges a surprise for the girl and, creating a romantic atmosphere, proposes to marry him, and Lin Shuang agrees without hesitation. A couple of weeks later, Lin Shuang and US CEO